I'm not here to con you with promises we can't keep. The PM's ordered an urgent review of the whole industry.
What's your own opinion of all this?
I'd like to think you could win.
But you don't think we can?
I think you've got problems. Finance, access, transportation, morale.
You might have a few problems of your own come tomorrow. If we can spread the sit-ins, it wouldn't take much to bring this whole bloody shoot to a halt.
I know.
So what will you say to the men?
I'm here to tell them that we sympathize with their anger and their frustration. And we want to help. Principally, I'm here to listen.
Right then, this is yours. And that's the revised schedule. There is a third seminar now on women in literature, which Bonnie will take, but you might like to be involved.
Fine.
Yes, good. You'll see we've had to change the title yet again. It's now called Women and Politics. How bland can you get? There's 32 enrolled, slightly more women than men, but no more than is usual at these things. And you'll see we've given over the last day to reporting back in a general free-for-all. You can stay for that, can you? Oh, good, good. Yes, well, I think that's everything. Do you know Oxford at all?
No, not really.
It's really lovely this time of year, with the students gone. Bonnie Clark and Chris Waite arrived this evening, and John Venables later in the week, probably Friday. Do you know the Home Secretary?
No, know of him.
He used to be a fellow of All Souls. And I thought you might have encountered him.
No, I don't read Encounter. I never got the habit.
Mm. Well, you'll hear the gong for dinner. Enjoy yourself. Did you have a good journey?
Yes, it was splendid, thank you.
Good. Well, I must say it's marvellous of you to spare us the time. Not a bit. Well, come along now, be introduced to everyone. This is Bonnie Clark, who teaches literature here.
How do you do?
And Chris Waite, who writes novels.
How do you do?
Will Brand. This is John Venables, whom I'm sure you all recognise.
We never met, have we? How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good, isn't this wonderful? I wish I could spend the whole week with you. I used to be here, you know, at Oxford. All Souls. Sometimes I wish I'd never left.
Well, come along and have a drink. I'm sure you'll really well.
No, I do think that lady there has touched on something very central, very important. Namely, in a democracy such as ours, isn't it vital that every opinion, every voice should be heard? I'll answer this way, and I hope you won't find it too casuistically political. You say important voices are missing in our colloquium. Tories, liberals, nationalists, and so on. Well, yes and no. Yes, for the obvious reasons you've indicated. No, and this is where I might become, shall we say, controversial. No, because at this particular moment in our political life, it's perfectly possible to argue that the present Labour Party, both in the House and in the country, includes and subsumes every kind of opinion and value within that spectrum that you've just described. Because the Labour Party is, in a sense, always has been, a consortium, an alliance of necessary and fruitful contradictions, expressive of the whole of a society, not just of a segment or a class. And as I say, this has always been so, ever since the party formed, out of its diverse beginnings at the turn of the last century. But what makes it crucially representative today, as I see it, is that those historic differences between hand and brain, between wealth and labor, between position and equality, are sensed and expressed within our party at higher intensity than anywhere else. Certainly within any of the other historic political parties. The Labour Party has, in a sense, taken the main ground. The real debate, as I now see it, can only come there. And as long as we comport ourselves as responsible, mature, balanced people, then we can continue to hold that main vital ground that is the road to the future.
Yes.
The one historic difference John Venables fails to mention is, of course, that between men and women. And in my own seminar, and in my own seminars, as in the others, we've seen that the domination of the one by the other is as characteristic of parties of the left, including my own party, as of parties of the right.
Oh, come, Badel. What about our sex discrimination?
Mistitled, in my view. We'd have been better calling it what it plainly is, a less inequality for women act. I don't argue it's unimportant. Far from it. But historically, it was the party responding to forces outside itself, to a largely autonomous movement of women who were no longer content to lie back and think of England. On the political spectrum issue, I think that the Minister, John Venables, has a point. If anyone doubts the width and the scope of action and belief within the Labour Party, I have here a few words from The Future of Socialism, which some of you may have read.
Sorry, at a delegation meeting.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, that's fine. Well, good afternoon. My name's Morgan of the Conference Arrangements Committee, and I'll be chairing this meeting. This is Mr. Pegram, the West Midlands organizer, who will act as secretary. Now, as you know, there are 7 resolutions tabled on textiles for the industry debate on Wednesday. Bearing in mind the pressures on conference time, my committee wants to see whether you can't agree to arrive at a single composite resolution embodying the substance, if not the detail, of the 7. So that's what we're here to do. I should point out that if such a composite were to be worked out, it would pretty well automatically be called. But no such guarantee exists for separate resolutions falling outside such a composite. But the choice is entirely yours. I want to emphasize that. I'm not here to influence you one way or the other. Now, any suggestions?
Point of order, Chairman. I had the understanding that the Lely resolution was to be brought by Councillor Frank Hilton.
Mr. Brand's credentials are in order, Mr. Parfitt. Councillor Hilton has been taken ill. Mr. Brand replaces.
Come to upper 4 remove.
Mr. Venables.
Before we begin to discuss Clause 1 and amendments, may I draw attention to the explanatory and financial memorandum that prefaces the bill. The bill before you is an attempt to build upon the undoubted success of the Temporary and Renewable Act we placed on statute 2 years ago as an immediate response to the terror that was being waged inside our cities. Now, when we introduced that first act, we were anxious that in pursuing law and order and the protection of the citizens of Britain, we should not make inroads into the area of democratic rights and individual freedoms. On the whole, our fears were unjustified. The vast majority of the citizens of this country continue to lead their lives untouched by the workings of the new act, which is as it should be. Law is always an assistance to good living, not the inhibition of it.
Right.
Now, as I said in the chamber on the second reading, the time has now come. Many may think it long overdue, in view of the awful events of the last few weeks and months, to integrate still further elements of those temporary laws into a permanent legal structure. I would like to say here how particularly gratified I am to have produced a bill that has won the wholehearted approval of all sections of the House. It's the closing of the ranks in times of danger to the people that I have personally sought across a broader spectrum of governmental policy than purely that of security.
I thank the Minister for giving way. May I remind the Right Honourable Member for Pembrey, however, that Conservatives had a long and unbroken record of patriotism in these matters, and that the bill before us is at least as much the result of opposition and persistent pressure as of the Minister's personal initiative.
We have canvassed, I might add, far and wide throughout the land. We have talked to police officers, magistrates. We've put to them the question, what in your view is a realistic length of time you need to prepare your case against those suspected of terrorist connections? And the answer has come back loud and clear. At the very least, a fortnight. I have here letters from leading police officers throughout the land. All of them asking for that longer period our amendment suggests. But in effect, what they're saying is this. Give us the powers Give us the time, and we'll do the job. Now, it would be a particularly stubborn minister in a particularly purblind cabinet who failed to heed such calls. And I do beseech the minister in the strongest possible terms to reconsider the contents of this clause and to accept our amendment number 63. Because the consequences of his not doing so may very well be horrible beyond imagining, for which he might very well be held himself, in some measure at least, personally responsible.
Mr. Hinchcliffe.
Madam Chairman, I should like to support the amendment and the statement of my right honourable friend, the member for Wrighton. As member for Walsover, I have the honour to represent a constituency in which a good many Irish live and work. Good people, decent people, hard-working and God-fearing. Overwhelmingly, it is their opinion that the patriots who perpetrate these horrific outrages, these men of blood, as they're being called, must be hunted down and brought to justice with the full rigor of the law. But the law must be strengthened in favor of the agencies of apprehension and detection. Now, let us have no more cant about democratic rights. It is democracy we seek to preserve against these alien, anarchistic and subversive elements in our midst. Now, the government's extension of the period of detention without trial is like everything else they've enacted over the past 2 years. Too little and too late. I personally would have favoured an amendment giving specific powers to the police of immediate rearrest should the situation in their view warrant it.
Like South Africa, you mean?
You may smear by association as much as you care to, sir. The facts are that our law enforcement agencies have asked for this amendment, and it would be a desperately foolish man who did not pay them heed.
Mr. Venables.
Madam Chairman, there are many reasons why the government will seek to have amendment number 63 defeated, some of which have been already touched on in that excellent speech we've just heard from the honourable member for Leamy. We too have taken soundings, but of a rather more official kind than that of the opposition. Members will remember the Conference of Chief Constables and the Army Seminar, which as Home Secretary I called for and presided over in the late summer. These and countless other meetings and consultations and correspondences, reaching far out into the country as a whole, have led us to the drafting of this bill, and in particular to this clause. In our judgment, a period of detention without trial not exceeding 10 days is the correct balance to be held between freedom and security. As to amendment number...
Would the minister give way?
I'd rather not, if you don't mind. I think you've had a generous bite of the carrot. On amendment 73, I shall dwell only briefly, since nobody's actually spoken to it, and I see no sign of the honourable member who is sponsoring it. The government is opposed at this point of time to the setting up of a national fingerprint file, or for that matter, if I may anticipate other amendments, tabled but not yet called, to the creation of any special anti-terrorist military unit on the model of West Germany or other sovereign states.
Would the minister say why?
Because to us this smacks of impetuosity, bordering upon panic. The measures to be taken must be calm. They must be rational. They must be fair, and seen to be so. And they must inconvenience the law-abiding citizens of this land as little as possible.
And be totally ineffective.
Now, as regards amendment number 84, of course we oppose. Speaking personally, I cannot believe that anybody who voted for the bill on the second reading can seriously be proposing it.